Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition, of course, of your favorite NFL podcast out there. You guys see the light in the background of, well, my background in this case, double wordage right there. I know Rick hates that. And you also see the light in Justin's background as well. You know what that means. It is, for the first time in this 2023 season, an episode of Chaos After Dark, where we are pre-recording this before our usual time for the people, to be blatantly honest with you all, because, well, our schedules are just about as much as a mess as the Giants' offensive line. But don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, no matter when you view this episode, just know in whole sanctity, Daniel Jones has probably gotten sacked again as you are listening to this episode, and will probably be sacked one more time at the end of this episode. Joining me, per usual, my compatriots of chaos that help me create this troublesome triumvirate that we have that will rule the NFL football podcast landscape one day. At the bottom of the screen, of course, alongside Billy Shakes, is the games master of the show, Justin. How we doing?
What's going on, man? Excited to talk some football after dark.
Absolutely. Whether it's morning, afternoon, night, rain, sleet, or snow, nothing will stop us from talking football except Xfinity. And joining me in the top row of the screen for the beautiful people here, you know him as the Podfather. He is the ultimate researcher and record keeper of the show. Podfather Rick. Rick, how we doing?
Flipping hamburgers, jerk. That's what I'm currently doing at the moment. Actually, flipping hot dogs is more like it, If you can flip a hot dog nowadays. I don't know if you can, but...
I mean, I'm sure someone would try it if given the opportunity. But hey, at the end, you mentioned flipping hamburgers, Rick. I guess that technically means that none of our criticism, as valid as it might be at times, makes sense would mean anything to Evan Neal, because he totally knows everything, despite the fact he's become a turnstile like the MTA, like you see at the MTA transit stations.
As I've said to you in the past, I'm going to at one point compile a list of all the number one first-round picks that Alabama has produced, and just go over how terrible some of these people clearly are, and Evan Neal's right up there with them. So, good times.
In terms of like long-term projects we've talked about on the show, that one is probably the easiest one for us to be able to handle production value-wise.
Oh yeah, big time.
we might actually be able to have some fun with that one, rather than just us listing stuff. But speaking of listing things, ladies and gentlemen, of course you have joined the show for a reason. Fun football chaos is the tagline. We will do plenty of that. We have week 4 to give our quick observations on this episode of Chaos After Dark and what we thought about the happenings of the week 4. Now, the first month of the season is coming on. We'll also give a very quick prediction of tonight's Thursday night football game, meaning you will know how smart we are once you see this episode, or how dumb we are. And then, of course, per usual, we end this with another edition of the Pick Challenge of the Sports Age of Chaos, and, of course, a Rantin' Rick's Rostrum podium. But before all that, we begin with the games, and we start with a mind-blowing fact of the week. Rick.
Oh yeah. Let's go. So,
give it to the people.
We'll do. A little bit of a different sporting fact for you. Today was the first day of the 2023 International Cricket Council World Cup, which is going on currently between like 10 different teams. I think Afghanistan's got a team as well, which is also pretty interesting to me. But it brought me back to my college years, because back in 2011 it was, a buddy of mine actually cut class with me to watch the final between India and Pakistan. Well, India is hosting this year, but the final from the last time there was a World Cup 4 years ago in 2019 was arguably the greatest and most controversial World Cup final in the history of history. So what happened in this game was you had the bitter bout between England and New Zealand. Now, in cricket, the way it works is that you think of it like baseball in a sense. If your team batted around all the time, and the only way you went on to the next batter was if you were out. The innings were over. So basically, it was a 10-inning game of just your team batting, and then a 10-inning game of your team fielding. That's kind of how cricket works in a sense. It's a very rudimentary short run of it. So after 10 innings on both sides, both New Zealand and England had 241 runs apiece, meaning they were tied. So what happened after that was they had to go to what's known as a super over, which, think of it like an overtime, where you play the full overtime. So it's like soccer in a way, where even though someone could score the first goal, you still play the full thing. So they played a super over. In the super over, they were tied again afterwards. And then the final thing that decided it was what's called the boundary rule. So basically what happened was, in the laws of cricket, they have this rule that states, what's the superior boundary count between the two teams? Like, how many balls were hit over the boundary versus not over the boundary, which in a sense is like playing a football game, being tied up to regulation in the Super Bowl, let's say, going into overtime, being tied up to the first overtime, and then having Dean Blandino or Roger Goodell announce, okay, the winning team was the team that had the most pass interference penalties drawn against them. It's like, really? What? This is the rule? Why is this the rule? And so what happened was England had 26 boundaries to New Zealand's 17, meaning that they won the 2019 Cricket World Cup on the technicality of all technicalities, which makes this year's edition so much more interesting that both those teams are in it and probably might face off again unless the host of India, get in there and try and win it again. So could be fun. It's another sport that you could think about and just look into and see the kind of fun that happens with it.
So what you're saying is basically they spin their own wheel of chaos and they decide what, in this case, what they're going to rule on.
I think that's actually the new tiebreaker rule this year. They adopted it from us, is the wheel of chaos. Yeah,
beautiful.
With algebraic permutations and all that sort of fun stuff. So,
well, of course, it wouldn't be the wheel of chaos without that, Rick.
Right? Why would it be? Come on now.
Come on now. Oh my God! But hey, look at that 2019. What a time that was, eh?
Oh my God! It was just great.
Oh,
we were having so much, we had so much fun, and then the next year it all came crashing down to earth.
Oh my God! Hey,
terrible.
Hey.
Terrible.
You know what? But we move on from what almost feels like a bygone era at this point, especially when it comes to our lives, when it comes to 2019. But the fun and games continue with the main game itself. The Games Master, as I've always said of this program, future game show host of America. Well, ladies and gentlemen, he comes back with yet another round of the most rousing game that happens on this show, Justin's Trivia. It is NFL related, ladies and gentlemen. We should probably add NFL in the title one day, but semantics. Justin, what do we got this week?
It's always football related because that's all I think about all the time. Okay. All the time, Rick. So I was looking at some teams' defensive stats this year, and it got me thinking. Right now, the Denver Broncos are giving up 37.5 points per game. All time, because I'm going to only ask within the last 20 years, all time, the only team to give up the team to give up the most points per game was the 1981 Baltimore Colts at 33.3 points per game. The next three teams are all within the last 20 years. Can you name me the team that has given up the most points all time in the last 20 years?
Houston Texans or Cleveland Browns pop up in the mind. I mean, even the 0-16 Lions were still somewhat competitive, I think, in a few of their games. So I don't think it's them. But I'm thinking of like the expansion teams.
It's not point differential. It's points per game given up.
Right.
So they could have been in a couple of close games, but it could have ended 35 to 33.
I mean, that is true. I know there was one that was 12-10. So I'm wondering if that kind of, does something to it.
Rick, real quick, a team that comes to mind for me, and I'm just saying them because I don't really remember what their defense was like, but they were awful that year. They got the first overall pick that year. I think it was 07, if I'm not mistaken. The 1-15 Miami Dolphins of that year, Rick.
Ooh.
Because if that happened in the 07 season, like I think it happened, then that was also the same year of the 16-0 Patriots, and the Patriots must have torched them both games that season. Yeah,
that might have been. That's a good one. I like that one.
Yeah, we could save that as we brainstorm here, but I think that's a candidate to definitely bring
I think
up.
so. Well, since I mentioned something and Justin gave me a nice little refutation back, which makes me think maybe he knows more about this than I do. Let me go with the 08 Detroit Lions first, the 0-16 embarrassment that was the Detroit Lions.
Well, the Detroit Lions in 2008 gave up 32.3 points per game to opponents.
Oh my God.
Making for third all-time, second within the last 20 years.
Okay. Jerk, this has to be, I think we have to go back and look at this. This has to be the third straight episode that I've guessed trivia where I've gotten the second place. 3 in a row. I'm Mr. Runner-up right now.
Well, I don't know if my guess will impact that because maybe it might. I will go with mine. Justin, I'm pretty sure this is the right year. The 2007 Miami Dolphins that went 1-15.
So the 2007 Miami Dolphins are actually not on this list.
Really?
Wow.
Wow.
Interesting.
That's something when we get to the observations, I'm going to personally go back to that season and look at it because that was a rough year for him.
That's very, very interesting.
Interesting. I was confident in that one.
How about you know what I'm thinking too? Before and when did Dan Campbell start coaching the Lions? The 21 or 20?
This is his third season right now,
So
right?
21.
Yeah.
So who was their head coach in 2020? I'm trying to think of.
Matt Patricia, but then he got fired.
Well, that I think provides the answer because they were a god-awful defense under Matt Patricia as the head coach. So I will say right team, wrong year, and I'll go the 2020 Detroit Lions.
The 2020 Detroit Lions gave up 32.4 points per game, 0.1 more points than the 2008 Detroit Lions, making for the worst defense points-wise in the last 20 years.
Because that year they also allowed, I think it was like 520 points, which was like the third worst in the history of the league or something like that. Yeah.
519.
Oh, 519. Even better.
Yeah.
Stuff. They were bad. They were a bad defense, man.
Oh my God.
Yes,
For a long time, clearly. Two different eras of Detroit Lions defense.
Well, I mean, again, 2008 was just a bad team in general. I mean, they were god awful. I want to go back and see who was on this roster that I aside from Dan Orlovsky, who we all know of. Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. You know who was a rookie on that team? Actually, very interestingly enough, Cliff Averill was a rookie on the 08 Lions.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
How about that?
And he ended up going from that Lions team that was so pathetic to the Super Bowl champion winning Seattle Seahawks.
That's right. And he was one of two guys that made the Pro Bowl that were drafted in 08 for the Lions. The other one is the other one's a very fun name with a very fun story. It is the fullback they drafted in the 5th round, Jerome Felton, out of who went to the Pro Bowl in 2012 with the Vikings. Well, I guess was he like a special teams guy? I guess he was.
Probably.
Out of Furman, go Paladins.
Well, as we get
27 points per game for that. 27, 21. I think it was 21.
Really?
That's not so bad.
A little bit better than I thought they were.
Yeah.
I guess the offense was just really bad that year then. Because a 1-15 team, oh man, like you're gonna get me with any like 1 to 2 win teams on these kind of lists because it's ugly. But
it was Cam Cameron's team, so obviously the least talented Cameron brother.
So as we take shots at that, and as we had an outstanding round of trivia, which Rick and his NFC North knowledge that he has accrued since however many months ago when he became a Bears fan, has led us to yet another trivia victory here. Outstanding trivia right there via Justin once again. We move on, ladies and gentlemen, from a quick rendition of fun. We have plenty of football to quickly discuss here as we go to the NFL Week 4 stories and observations. Of course, we quickly look through the previous slate of games and we look at the big picture things that really stood out to us in this set of games, guys. And we look at a couple different things. I promise to all the people watching this show, once you do, we will not cut away to Taylor Swift at any moment during this broadcast because, we're actually here for the football portion, not for anything else. So there's that. One thing that I really noticed in this game is, man, oh man, the moral of the story is when you have a shoulder injury, you should probably sit out because Deshaun Watson sat out. Can't criticize him this week. Derek Carr didn't sit out. Played like garbage. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers easily won that game 26-9. I believe taking the lead in the NFC South at this moment, if I'm not mistaken. And we talked about various teams like Rick believing in the Falcons, me and Justin believing in the Panthers in the preseason. Were the Tampa Bay Buccaneers the team we were supposed to believe in, boys? Maybe.
It's another one that I had pegged for a rough year, and they've showed me up so far.
Yeah, they've showed a lot of people up, Justin. Trust me, you and I both for certain. Rick, kind of when it comes to the NFC South, just like we don't have to get into discourse about it, but just a sweeping view of them. The Falcons losing just a really tough game in London overall. Just Arthur Smith, the first 2 games of the season looked like he knew how to get that offense going.
Sorry, what happened there? I don't have those. I apologize.
Making a liar out of me, this guy.
No, but look, I think we all kind of understood that this was the Falcons. They are struggling, and I don't want to say it's time to go to Taylor Heineke, but it might be time to go to Taylor Heineke. I mean, look at how well it worked out for Washington. Desmond Ridder has talent, but there's just an awareness issue that's still teeming from last year. I mean, in that game against Jacksonville, he was 19 of 31, 191 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks, including a pick 6, and he was sacked 4 times. I mean, it's not the worst performance of the week by far, but you expected better. You expected better, though, from him. You expected progression, and this is kind of more of a regressive type of nature. Like, they started off so well, and then the last 2 games have just been the old Desmond Ridder has come back for Atlanta. It's rough for them, but
yeah, I don't blame you in that one, because I think a lot of people would very much think the same thing in regards to that, just complete regression by Ridder going into the season. And like, I was looking at Heineke on the sideline because I was seeing this game. I'm like, just put him in there. What is the negative if you're Arthur Smith? Like, you're not tied to Desmond Ridder. This isn't a first-round quarterback that's just struggling, which there's plenty of those happening around the NFL. But this isn't the case. Yes. This is a later round QB that is looking like he's not long for this roster. You don't lose anything by going to Taylor Heineke. I think it should be a rule going forward. I'm not just talking about this game for the reason. I think it should be a rule overall, because these players have to go to London anyway. I think for 1 quarter in the London games, the teams have to play their backup quarterback. The teams get to decide the quarter. I think that's how it should go.
Really?
You're telling me that in Germany in a couple weeks, both Tua and Mahomes have to come out?
I said London.
The loop. Oh, he's trying to get the loophole out. I see.
Okay. Yeah. You thought you had something there, didn't you, Justin?
Oh yeah, no, that's fine. We'll take out Josh Allen and Trevor Lawrence this week.
Yes, absolutely. You tell me you don't want to see Case Keenum versus Rick, who's the Jaguars' backup quarterback.
David Garrard.
Exactly. You tell me you don't want to see that matchup, Justin?
Well, listen, last year we had Saquon Barkley playing quarterback for a drive for the Giants.
And that was, hey, I mean, if Saquon's coming back in week 5, maybe they should bring him back for that, because that will be the best quarterback play they've gotten all season. Speaking of quarterback play and getting it from backups.
Nathan Rourke.
There we go. Backup QBs kind of struggled this past week, guys, in some of these games. I vaguely mentioned the idea of the Browns game earlier, but Torian Thompson-Robinson, DTR, shout out to you. Your career will be better than what that first game was, but it was just a tough first game for him. Ultimately, Aiden O'Connell struggled a little bit as well for himself in that, so rough go of things, relatively speaking, for some of the backup QBs for themselves. It just kind of goes to show that, you know what? It's tough. It's tough being thrown into a good defense in a tough situation against good defense.
There was also a rough backup quarterback showing by the Steelers. Oh, no, that was Kenny Pickett, the starter. Never mind. I apologize.
Yes. Just a rough offensive showing overall, because the Houston Texans absolutely shellacked the Steelers. This will be the first one we kind of have a little bit more discourse on. The Matt Canada offense, 1 week it puts up over 20 against the Raiders, and most of that being in the first half. The offense went kaput in the second half. They vastly struggle against Houston. Can't do anything. Mike Tomlin had the quote that, they're cool with their fans being, what did he say? Fat, plump, and fat, sassy, and content, or whatever it is, or fat, sassy, and happy, whatever the quote was. That's one way to deflect things. It's not going good in Pittsburgh right now. It's a touch and go situation when it comes to Pickett with the production of the skill position guys. Even the offensive line has looked like it's very much regressing. That is in part due to injuries, but even just performance overall, it's not looking great. Justin, I'll throw it to you first with the Steelers. Like, the Steelers, because the AFC North at the moment is close. Now there's a game that's a big week 5 game coming up here for the Steelers that could maybe give an early edge to a big foe in the AFC North. What do the Steelers have to do to right things offensively with this team right now?
They got to get Najee going, because that offense is supposed to run behind Najee Harris. If they could get him really running, it'll open up everything. It'll open up the play action game. It'll help the offensive line a bit. It'll solve and mask a lot of the problems that they've had with their young quarterback and their offensive play calling. And it's something that baffles me that they cannot get Najee Harris going at all. I mean, this is a kid that came in. He was supposed to be a top running back coming out. He was the only running back drafted in the first round that year, I believe. And it was the perfect fit and blah, blah, blah. And he's done nothing this year. Has he even gotten into the end zone? I don't even know. So if they can get the offense going, if they want to get the offense going, they actually have to get the run game going, and that'll open things up. And they have some good young receivers too. They have Calvin Austin. They have why can't I think of his name?
George Pickens.
Yeah. They have guys there. I don't understand.
Yeah.
Najee Harris, by the way, has not gotten into the end zone so far this year.
Yep.
49 carries, 210 yards.
Yeah, it's not great.
Could be because he was a first-round pick from Alabama. I'm just saying.
All right, this one's not on Najee. Come on.
No, this one is on Matt Canada because 62 points have been scored by the Steelers this year. You know how many points have been scored by the actual offense, not counting Chris Boswell? You want to know the answer to that?
Yes. Yeah, there we go.
27 of the 62 points have been scored.
Does that include extra points?
Well, actually, one game they scored 6 on offense because the 2-point conversion failed. So if you want to go by that logic, then it's 24 points.
Not on.
Yeah, not ideal, but give CJ Stroud his laurels, man. He's great.
Absolutely, CJ Stroud. Great. It's almost like there was a mock draft or two out there that had CJ Stroud going first overall,
and it's almost like if I remember that I said if Stroud then Anderson because I knew Bryce Young wasn't going to be that good.
And the Texans got both.
Interesting. Well, some people should listen to us.
Yeah, well, evidently so. Yes. Of which I think maybe one team may have finally listened to us because they were really mad this week. And in doing so, they absolutely destroyed Miami, proving that Dolphins still can't live on land or in the cold in Buffalo. The Buffalo Bills absolutely roughshotted the Miami Dolphins. Stephon Diggs had a monster game against them. Props to him with 3 tutties on 6 receptions against them. Josh Allen absolutely destroyed them. Still not much of a running game, but they did really need a running game when the Dolphins offense just completely fell flat in the first half. Couldn't really do anything. And at the end of the day, big win. However many victories in a row it is for the Bills in Buffalo against the Miami Dolphins. They're looking really good. Look, I will say I've admittedly challenged the Bills this season. They looked awful in week 1. They're just straight up dreadful. And there were questions about that mentality of that group coming into the season. I think were legitimate, the drama of Stephon Diggs, but they bounced back. 3 straight victories, dominating teams with these victories here. And they're 3-1, and they hold the crown at the top of the AFC East right now, relatively speaking. They did just beat Miami. Rick, Buffalo, it's looking pretty good right now. Again, only a month into the season, but whatever questions we had after that Jets game, they've done their best to solve a lot of it.
The weird dichotomy about it is that Miami can beat pretty much everybody except for Buffalo. Yep. That's the weirdest thing because their offense is so high-powered, and yet whenever they play the Bills, for whatever reason, it just doesn't work out. But you're right. This was the performance that Buffalo needed to kind of get back into the flow of everything. It wasn't just Stephon Diggs, even though he was a big player there, but James Cook was a dual threat for them. And Josh Allen had one of his best games. But this defense, man, we talk about him a lot. Matt Milano's a really good linebacker. And he showed you that he's a force to be reckoned with. This team, they're in a really, really good spot. I mean, you can't say that about a lot of these other teams, but look at the difference. They've got the tiebreaker on Miami right now, and they're 2 games clear of the rest of that division.
Yep. It's pretty good.
It's Buffalo's again.
And you mentioned the defense, Rick. Who are they getting back now that he's going to be activated off the PUP list? Von Miller.
Guy with great glasses.
Great glasses. And to some people, was a Defensive Player of the Year candidate midway through half season last season. So, Justin, obviously, tragic thing for the Jets in the AFC East this season, but it's going pretty good for the Buffalo Bills right now. What are you seeing out of Buffalo that has just made them, looking at this moment, the class of this division once again?
Well, I mean, they were the class of the division to begin with. I mean, going into the season, I'm pretty sure I even had the Bills winning the division going in. Miami is
I think we all did.
outscoring teams, but their defense has been rough. And it's, a lot of it is due to injury, of course. They did lose, I believe, 2 of their cornerbacks coming to the year, so it hasn't been easy for them. But they got to make it up somehow. And Buffalo's defense is still solid. I mean, they're going to give up points. They'll bend, but you're still going to have to outscore them. And it's hard to do with a defense that's playing the way Buffalo's defense is. Week 1 was rough for them because they had a lot of turnovers, something that obviously we didn't think Josh Allen would continue to do throughout the season. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's going to turn the ball over. He's just that kind of guy. But 4 or 5, I think it was 5 turnovers in the first game.
Yeah.
I don't expect that out of Josh Allen. That's a lot. And that is a good Jets defense too, but that's too much.
Absolutely.
So, once again, they're among the top teams. It's interesting because every year they have the same problems, and every year it almost doesn't really matter in most games.
Yep.
That their run game is rough. Their run defense is their secondary is banged up all the time. They get little to no production out of their tight ends. I mean, they're doing okay, but they're not really doing a ton. And they win games left and right.
Yep. It's just really the key amplified moments where you could maybe see them slip a little bit. And we definitely saw that last season. And it kind of looked like shades of old in the first game of this season, but they've very much bounced back since then. You do mention this just when it comes to the injury front, like not only Jordan Poyer, I think, got banged up in that game. Tre'Davious White, unfortunately, out for the season. I think it was a torn Achilles that I saw, and just absolutely brutal when it comes to that for Tre'Davious White, who already had to work his way back during last season with an injury and was looking good the first 3.5 or so games. It's just brutal for a guy who is extremely uber talented. And yet again, the Bills have to field the defense without him. Again, good defense overall, of course, obviously, but losing your number 1 corner is no easy feat to do yet again for the second time in, 3 or 4 seasons now that they have to deal with that. Is a big blow, especially when you consider the overall talent that is around this league. So they're going to have to hope that their talent shines through. A couple games here, guys, that ended in field goals. Well, field goal difference in terms of the score, I should say. One of these games did end in field goal because it ended in overtime. The Eagles-Commanders game was a shootout, to say the very least, and it ended with a 34-31 victory for the Philadelphia Eagles. But that Washington team looking pretty good. It's almost like, hot take here, guys. Eric Bieniemy can coach offense.
Yes, but Ron Rivera is no longer a riverboat gambler. Should have gone for 2.
You think?
And look. I know it's interesting that I said should have gone for 2.
When you are the guy who always says
I'm the champion of take the points university. But that is when it made sense to go for 2. Like you pull that off from the 1 yard line.
Rivera too.
Yeah, right? You pull that off from the 1 yard line, and you knock off the defending NFC champions and stun them in their own building. That's the right time to do it. And Terry McLaurin had a catch. I'm sorry. It was a bad week for the refs. That was a catch.
Yeah. We'll get to them in a moment here, Rick. Don't you worry about that.
Yeah.
And the other game that ended with a field goal difference in the score ultimately. But this was something to say the very least. The earliest tank bowl we've had, arguably, in NFL history. And oh, glory to God, it was. At one point, the score was 28-7. I wish it was 28-3. But unfortunately, we cannot always get everything we want. But ultimately, the Chicago Bears were torrent in the first half, scoring against the Denver Broncos, 21-7 there. They get the first score of the third quarter. It's looking great. This is the best game of Justin Fields' career. This is probably the best coaching game of Matt Eberflus's career. This is the best the Bears have looked offensively all season, and it's gone. 24 straight points by the Denver Broncos, which kind of feels weird to say. Clearly, all the power came from Sean Payton cutting off his sleeves from his jacket during the game. We know that was the ultimate difference maker at the end. But Russell Wilson was actually able to complete passes on a semi-consistent basis. It was a combination of that and the running game and the defense, ultimately giving them the victory, and very questionable play calling by the man, the myth, the legend himself, Matt Eberflus. That trick play that they tried to do that led to the Fields fumble and the 4th down call, not letting your best runner run the ball. Not great. Rick, I haven't seen anyone in professional sports try to play their way out of a job like this since John Morant last season. Matt Eberflus, it feels like him and Brendan Staley are competing to try to get fired this year. And I think Matt Eberflus has retaken the lead in that competition.
I mean, if only for the fact that the Chargers have more wins than the Bears, I would say yes, but both are egregious. Yeah, this was rough. This was a hard pill to swallow because you wasted, as you said, the best game of Justin Fields' career and really one of the best overall offensive, outputs by the Bears this season and in quite a long time. It's been a long, long time since the Bears won a game, man. Chicago's literally starving for a win at this point, and the only saving grace right now, if you're the Bears, is that at this very moment, you at least have not only your number one pick, but Carolina's number one pick. Yep. And since you're both 0-4, that's picks 1 and 2. So that's nice. But unfortunately, you can't draft a head coach in the NFL draft. If they could, they would, but they can't, so they shan't.
I wonder who they would draft if they could. Justin, obviously rough going here for the Bears. Victory was so close, yet so far for Chicago. I mean, they did play better at least, but it was against a Vance Joseph defense, so you kind of have to take that with a grain of salt ultimately. And they are presently playing at this moment of time as we are recording the Commanders, which the Bears are up 10-0 on the Commanders actually. So
listen, 28-7, it means nothing.
Yeah, very true. Ultimately here, Justin, quick thoughts on them. Will the Bears win a game this season? I think it's the question.
I can't imagine they're going to go undefeated. I mean, winless. I don't know where it's coming. I mean, this is a fairly good start. I thought Washington would be able to get after Justin Fields a little more, especially with that defensive line, but I guess not right now. It looks like they're dominating early on, at least through 3 drives. But yeah, they'll win. There's a win on that schedule somewhere. I don't see anyone. I would never predict anyone really going winless. But that being said, do I see a lot of wins?
Not a lot. I will say this. The question that I want to ask, but I think is more apropos to maybe save it for another week or two, is can Justin Fields save his spot in Chicago? I think is the question to ask. I think that'll be the more scintillating question. But again, I think let's give it another week or two because he was he 19 of 20 in the first half?
Yeah, something like that.
Last week against the Broncos. And right now he's starting off amazing against the Commanders too. I said we need to give it another week or two to give that question a little bit more breathing room for us to have here in the discussion. But speaking of which, it almost felt like if you were breathing, breathing could have sacked Daniel Jones on Primetime Football, and breathing could have also gotten you a penalty in Chiefs-Jets. 2 ugly games for different reasons when it comes to the New York teams. It's almost like New York football teams get the ugly games on primetime so far this season. Week 1, one of them gets shut out 40-0, and the other one loses their quarterback first drive of the season. This one of them, a little bit of ref ball in there on both sides on Sunday Night Football, and then on Monday Night Football, just Daniel Jones gets placed in the witness protection program after the game. Justin, I think maybe more so your thought on the Jets game on this one, and then Rick, anything you have to add to it, plus the Giants game. And before you guys get going, I have received confirmation actually that Daniel Jones has once again been sacked as of this recording. So Justin, please go.
I don't know if I want to talk about it.
I'll go then. I'm kidding.
No, you finally had something out of Zach Wilson. They finally played a really good game against a good team. I mean, if they would have played like that last week, they would have beat New England. They obviously didn't. There's some sort of issue that Bill Belichick comes to town and everyone shits their pants, swear jar. I'm sorry, but I don't understand it. But the way that they played against the Chiefs, listen, they may have won. They may have lost. There's no way we're ever going to know. But they were robbed of the opportunity to play a real game. And almost every play, there was a missed call or an added call for whatever reason. Like, for example, when the ref waits to see if you actually made the interception before you throw a flag for a bogus holding call. Yes. So it was rough. It was rough to watch. It was not my favorite night. I expected them to get blown out.
Right. And it was looking like that at first.
They covered the spread.
They indeed covered the spread and then some. Although
Not that I bet on the Jets, but
Patrick Mahomes got a lot of people upset when he slid and stayed in bounds and didn't score. That was funny to hear people lament about that on social media and being upset about that. Which
it was the right play.
Oh, it was the right football play, but a lot
Yeah.
of betting people were upset, to say the very least.
Heck 'em.
Exactly. No double swear jar for Justin on this one. Nobody has hit double swear jar yet on any episode so far in the existence of this program. Justin is halfway there now.
Don't tempt me.
Rick, any additional comments you want to make about the Chiefs Jets game, and then anything you want to say about Seahawks Giants as well?
Yeah. 77 episodes of doing this, and I still am the cleanest one here. So I just want to point that out again.
Yeah, I don't think you've sweared yet, right?
No, not once.
It's amazing.
It's funny because I went back and watched episode 40 because that was the last time I remember a swear being dropped, and I said the same thing then. 40 episodes of this, and I'm the one who hasn't sworn yet. So there you go.
Checkpoint.
Right. Look, the Jets played a very, very good game. Zach Wilson played a very solid game, and those little mistakes are the difference between being a good quarterback and a great quarterback, and being a good team and a great team. And the Jets right now are just on the wrong side of it, and if they can right the ship, if Zach Wilson stays this Zach Wilson, then he'll be a better player, and they'll be a better team. The Giants, man. The Giants are just... I almost feel like maybe Dable and Kafka's offensive schemes are too predictable because they are still kind of playing conservative for Daniel Jones, even though their weapons are more upgraded. And I feel like when Graham Gano is your best player, it's not a good night for you. And I do want to say props to the independent neurotrauma consultant for not slapping Jamal Adams after he yelled at him on the sideline. Because, I would have in that case. Like, I'm just telling you, man, if you go back out there, you might get hurt even more, and I don't want to do that to you. So, and yeah, like I said in the intro, I know he apologized, but like, come on, Evan Neal, don't be that stereotype of a bad Alabama football player who can't keep his foot out of his mouth.
Well, also,
I did hear before you go. I did hear this too. Somebody has to teach Evan Neal how to block on Twitter because he can't block in real life either.
Yeah, he can't do it. Like, I understand that there are groups of people that are overly, like, I'll say this. Overall speaking, the best athletes in the world understand what they're doing more than we would just by watching them. Absolutely. I fully get that. There are things when it comes to the training, how they have to approach everything. Ultimately, we will never get to experience that. But we don't need to have football experience to be able to say Evan Neal has not played good this season. That Giants O-line as a whole, aside from Andrew Thomas, whenever he's been able to play, has not played good. Like, and as much as I harp on Daniel Jones, and trust me, I'll do plenty more of that this season. But at the same time, like, it's not Daniel Jones' fault that he gets sacked 10 times in a game. The Seahawks were one of the worst pass rushes statistically going into that game, and now they're top 10 in the league, maybe even higher than that, just because of that game alone. It's like Khalil Mack, 0 sacks going into the Raiders game, 6 sacks alone against Las Vegas. Heck of a revenge game, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, overall, the Giants are not looking great. And it's still rough times the next couple weeks because now they got to deal with a halfway gauntlet of the AFC East teams, and it's the two best AFC teams. AFC East teams, you don't even get a break dealing with the Patriots. And look, Zach Wilson did play a good game, but respectfully, easier to play against Zach Wilson than it is to play against Josh Allen. Like, it is not easy times for the Giants, to say the very least. And Brian Daboll, I'm not going to go to the extent that I'm seeing some people take the hot takes way too far. He's not a fraud, but man, it really just goes to show last season, a lot of things fell right. And what did we say at the end of the day for them? An unsustainable way of winning. You cannot win in sports by getting lucky. Yep. That's what they kind of got a lot of last season.
Even the game that they won, they lost Saquon Barkley. So, But it also goes back to when we were talking about this team in the preseason. That week was the week that J.C. Hassenauer, who they got from Pittsburgh to be their starting center, went on the IR with a torn tricep. So you lost a guy coming out of camp anyways. And you started the rookie center who got hurt because you couldn't run the tush push properly. I have thoughts about that later too. Yeah. But, just the offensive line's beat up, man.
Yeah.
It's not ideal.
Ultimately, rough go of things, to say the very least, when it comes to New York football as a whole.
Yep.
And we'll see if it gets any better going into this week and more. slowly but surely. Spoiler alert: one team is going to struggle this week. We were going to give a quick prediction on this game, but the Bears are already up 10-0. Now again, it kind of doesn't mean anything, but that's just a score update for the people. So you'll see who wins after this. I mean, do you guys want to give a prediction on this one?
Look, I think something will tie in real life here. We're recording this on Thursday night, and we lost Dick Butkus tonight. Yes. So this is the way for the Bears to, honor that legacy by getting their first win by playing a really good defensive game. I think they win this one 27-3 in honor of Butkus. They crush Washington on defense. They're really doing well on offense, but they crush them on defense too, just to really cement that legacy and, honor one of the best linebackers the game ever saw.
Yes, a man who has the award named after him in college that's given to best linebacker for a reason. Yep. That dude was a beast. Very much R.I.P. Dick Butkus. And yeah, I think that would be a very fitting way if they are able to honor him like that, Rick. So I think that's a good one. So to honor the legacy, Chicago, we're rooting for you. Even though I picked against you going into tonight, but that was before this happened. Anyways, moving on from that. Of course, that's a game that doesn't matter towards predictions and picks. Well, let's get to some games that does, ladies and gentlemen, because it is the return this week of the usual #SAOC pick challenge where Rick, Justin, and I go in a snake serpentine order via a 4-point pick to a 1-point pick as we pick games in the NFL season on any given week. From our most confident to least confident, we must all go 4. An upset cannot be a 1-point pick. It can be at minimum be a 2-point pick. We can pick a tie, but it must be your 5-pointer. And ultimately, this is all for bragging rights at the end of the season. And maybe a little bit more. Also not to lose. And also this week, the Pirate only has 1 game to pick from. Is that a disadvantage for him? You'll see a bit later on. But enough of the diatribe. Rick, please give the people the standings before we get going.
Justin had the best week of the 3 of us last week. Almost perfect. He went 3-1. It was that damn
Raiders
game that kind of did him in at the end. But so he's in 3rd place out of the 3 of us at 24 points. But again, great week by him. Jurg, you going into Sunday night did not have any points scored, so we were getting a little worried about you. But then the Chiefs and the Seahawks did you well, so you have 27 points.
Yeah, dang right.
And I, despite losing the 4-point pick, hit on every other game. So I'm still in first place. Again, I still don't know how I did this, but I'm still in first place at 31 points.
Attaboy.
And the Pirate is down at 6. So he's got a ways to catch up. But again, it's a lot better than whatever happened last year because, I was in a week-long tangle with the lost of Ghost Monster, Smoke Monster, whatever it was. So, so good there. Justin will go first, then we'll go Serpentine. But we must, of course, add that our lovely games this week are being brought to us with the lines courtesy of
Caesar Sportsbook.
Absolutely.
Yes. And real quick, ladies and gentlemen, I brought it up earlier in the show. We are doing this a couple nights before, of course, we usually do it. So if any of these lines by chance have changed by the games happening on Sunday, them's the breaks. We made our picks. So
locking them in. So Justin goes first. And Justin, as of right now, I'm sure you've seen there are 2 games where the lines are just impeccable for double-digit point favorites. So I don't know which way you're thinking, and there is 1 game currently that's even. So that one is disqualified as an upset at the moment. So,
So you're saying I should pick the Giants? No,
absolutely.
I'm gonna pick the Dolphins. To me, that seems like the safest one. Dolphins at home against the struggling defense and a team that's been turning the ball over. That seems like the best pick.
That is also the biggest line of the week at 12.
Yes.
So
we ain't picking spreads.
No, remember we floated that last year as a possible idea.
We did.
And
glad we never did it.
Let me tell you something. I have a pool that I run on CBS Sports too. I win games, but I lose because of the spread, and it really makes me angry.
Kills me.
Yeah,
happens, man.
All right, Jurg, up to you.
All right, let me just keep this simple. I hate picking against this team because I had such high hopes going into the season for them, but just give me the line here: the Detroit Lions over the Carolina Panthers in the battle. Because at the end of the day, guys, in the jungle, the Lion rules over the Panther.
In the jungle, the mighty jungle. Yeah, well,
the Lions lose that night, but not in this game.
Not in this game. All right, so that puts me in a bit of a disadvantage, but I'm okay with it.
Just go all upsets.
I did that week. Didn't I? Well, no. You know what? I'm going to ride a hot hand here at 4 points, and it is an upset, so I'm going to decide on this one.
Oh, I really wanted to take this game, man, but I knew you were going to. You're picking Texans over Falcons, aren't
I'm
you?
picking Texans over Falcons. Yep, I'm a 4-pointer. Like I said, it's a hot hand, and I think if Atlanta rights the ship, great, but I think CJ Stroud has hit a really good stride, so I'm going to go with that. And then at my 3 points, I'm going to do something else that might be a little risky. Again, I'm at a point right now where I'm playing with house money because I never expect to be in first place. So the fact that I am is just gold for me. I'm going to go upset after upset. I am going to pick the New York Jets over the Denver Broncos at 3.
That was another one I was considering.
I think that this might have been, the right call for Zach Wilson this past week, and I think that it's the case where Denver, even against Chicago, you saw their defense is struggling.
Yeah.
Now, going to Denver is not easy for any team, but something about this game and Russell Wilson going up against that defense, I like the Jets. So give them to me at 3 points there.
Fair.
So, Jurg, to you.
Yes. All right. There's still actually multiple games here that I like upset-wise, so I'm pretty confident that one of the games that I like will still be on the board after this pick for me. I know they struggled a little bit last game, but they're not facing anywhere near as good of a defense in this one. Give me the Kansas City Chiefs over the Vikings. I'm shocked the line is 3.5. It should be at least 6.5.
Yeah, I don't understand why that line is there either. But that's a good call there. All right, Justin, you have 3, and then you have 2 back-to-back.
All right, I'm going to pick the San Francisco 49ers over the Cowboys Sunday night.
Solid pick.
I just think that's the way to do it.
Okay.
DJ Moore has a fantastic touchdown grab for his second of the night. He's already got over 125 yards and 2 touchdowns, and there's 14 minutes left in the second quarter.
Well, there you go. There you go.
Wow. Okay.
Live reaction.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys are watching, but that's a wild catch.
It's on Amazon Prime. You know I don't watch those games.
I know you're not watching, Rick.
Thank you.
And then I'm torn about my upset pick because there's 2 surprising teams that I actually very much like, even though Rick decided to take all the upsets that were good. At this 4 and 3 point pick.
Let's have some fun.
I'm going to go with what I think is the safer one. I guess neither one of them is really safe. They're about the same. I'm going to go with the LA Rams over the Eagles. I think that they've played a very good game. I think the Eagles have been just a little off this year, and I don't think they're going to go on the winning streak that they went on last season. So yeah, that's what I'm going to go with right now. The Rams at home.
I would have considered it very heavily.
Back, I believe.
Yes, he is. I would have considered him more had Stafford not got a little bit dinged up at the end of the Colts game last week.
The hip.
That kind of scared me off. I think he did finish the game. He'll be back for this one, but hurting your hip and now you're going up against a pretty solid defensive line. I'm a little bit scared about that, but I don't blame you, Justin. I think maybe this could be one of the premier shock games of this week, so I don't blame you at all. Like I said, I was confident for a reason. A lot of guys are going to be back for this team. They've been playing banged up the last couple weeks. They're the home team is favored by 1 point. I think the away team's getting the win. Give me the Green Bay Packers over the Raiders on Monday Night Football. I'm confident. Even though I'm not a big Jordan Love guy, I think they could very much beat Josh McDaniels here.
There you go. Well, good for you. I have 2 points, then I have 1 point. I'm going to keep a trend going here because I believe that we are going into week 5. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. And so
I know what you're doing.
In weeks that end in an odd number, this team seems to struggle.
Yes.
And yet every time that they get mentioned, they seem to do well.
Yes.
However, I think we've seen that the team they're facing can be a lot better. So I'm going to take the Indianapolis Colts at 2 points over the Tennessee Titans.
Also an upset.
2 point take. Upsets galore, 3 and 3. So, but as you know, I do make all my picks beforehand, and so I have one upset on the board, and I'm not taking that. I'm not taking the 1 point, even though it's tempting. That is, by the way, is Pittsburgh over Baltimore. I'm not touching that game with a 10-foot pole. No, thank you.
Yeah, it's a rough one. Man.
I will, however, take a game that I think flipped around. I would have liked it better, but something about this game to me just screams that the team that I'm taking just needs it more. And that would be taking Cincinnati over Arizona on the 1-pointer pick. Because the Cardinals have shown they're a really good team, but the Bengals have all these aspirations. There's talk about trading T. Higgins. They've got to right the ship now. So go beat the Cardinals at 1 point. Cincinnati over Arizona.
I will also go with an AFC North team here. I know they are injured, but the other team they're facing is injured too as well. And just the Steelers are not looking great. This was tough for me personally, but I'm going with the Ravens for my 1-point pick. It's close. It's in Pittsburgh. I know. And Lamar is not the best in his career when it comes to going to Pittsburgh, but I just think there's too much going against Pittsburgh in this one for me to pick confidently for them. So I'm going with the Ravens.
So, Justin, that leaves you with a very interesting dilemma here. I mean, unless you're confident in what you have at 1 point.
What's the dilemma you're talking about?
Well, because you could take the game between two probably AFC playoff teams, or the game that's even, because we don't really know who's going to be starting a quarterback for either team, to be honest with you. So
we know Mac Jones will start for the Patriots. That was never in question.
Are you sure about that? Yeah, I think it's highly debatable.
Yeah, they said it after the game last week.
Well, I know what they said, but
dang it, Bill.
I am going to go with the Bills.
Okay.
Just the best team left. You know what I mean? It makes the most sense to me. I know the only reason I avoided it early was because I needed a 1, take an upset, and 2, I don't love the London series in terms of betting. But by the way, do you know the other upset game I was talking about? I think the Cardinals are going to beat the Bengals.
Oh, that would be a killer blow for the
team
Bengals
at
season.
home. The Bengals have the lowest yards per attempt.
Yeah.
I believe the lowest. They're among the lowest team in passing yards this year. So
yeah,
this Cardinals team has been scrappy. They've played well defensively. They're going to get after Joe Burrow, and they're not going to allow Mixon to run, which was a catalyst for their win, their only win this year.
I think that's fair. That's the fair one.
But I don't have any points on it, so Bills.
There you go.
Fair enough. All right. And with that being said, Rick.
Yep.
There is one game remaining.
Yes.
And we know who it goes to. It goes to Billy Shakes. So please tell the people what his pick for that game is.
He is going to take the Saints over the Patriots.
There it is.
That one. That's really a terrible game to have, honestly, but
absolutely. Now, like we mentioned earlier, there is 1 point so far. We did this last year with another mascot. There's only 1 point on the line here. Now, people are thinking, oh, that's unfair. Only 1 point. He's not going to catch up. Au contraire, mon frère. Because, ladies and gentlemen, it is the much long-awaited return of the favorite that everybody loves. It's the Wheel of Chaos. And the Wheel of Chaos, of course, much ballyhooed favorite on the program, on the show, really, for all of the beautiful people on planet Earth. And this wheel will decide the point multiplier that Billy Shakes is going to get this week, as you see every individual variable there from 1x to 10x plus 1, patent pending. So, boys, let's spin to win.
I gotta say, I always love the 10x plus 1. I know that it's not a very popular option on the wheel there, but I think it just adds a little more fun and levity to everything that we do. So
it adds character.
It does. Makes things more entertaining.
It really does.
It does.
But we may not have to worry about that because
3, it looks like. That is not a hot start to the Wheel of Chaos, and we'll be doing that quite frequently as we go along the process. So, all right then, times 3. So that means that we're going to have at least another week where the Pirate is in single digits of points.
Yeah.
So Justin can pad that lead over him a little bit further, or somebody else will be in third place by the end of this week. Who knows?
Maybe. I was really rooting for the 10x plus 1 there.
We got too lucky the first week last year. We got too lucky with that.
I think we used up all the mascot luck in just.
I think we did. I think we did here. So recapping for the people, Justin At 4 points, Miami over the Giants. 3 points, San Francisco over Dallas. 2 points, Rams over the Eagles in an upset. 1 point, Buffalo over Jacksonville. Jerg, 4 points, Detroit over Carolina. 3 points, Kansas City over Minnesota. 2 points, Green Bay over Vegas in an upset. 1 point, Baltimore over Pittsburgh. Myself, I went upset heavy. Houston over Atlanta at 4 points. Jets over Denver at 3. Colts over the Titans at 2. And Bengals over Arizona at 1. That's the only one that's not an upset. But it might as well be because Arizona's the better team so far through 4 weeks of the season.
As weirdly as it is to say that.
Yeah, and then the final pick is the Pirate. Billy takes New Orleans over New England at 1 point times 3 for the multiplier, so he can finish at 9 points if you will.
Speaking of which, ladies and gentlemen, it's time. It's time for the main event of the show. Clear out the way, give him the rock, and let him go. It's the Rostrum Podium.
All right, let's do this very, very quickly here. There have been some things that I've been kind of ruminating on that have been a little to me. Number 3, if you're driving a car, I drive a car. Justin drives a car. Jerg, in your fantasy, you drive a car. If you drive a car and you have like fuzzy dice or the little trees, hanging on like your dashboard or whatever, why do you need 4 of them at once? There was a car that pulled up next to me that literally had 4 little trees, and they were the black ice little trees. That's the worst smelling one to have in your car because it's just like it's overpowering. One of them's overpowering. So 4 of them? Who are you trying to impress? Like what are you trying to do with that? Like, stop it. 1 is fine. 2 is okay. 1 in the compartment, 1 in the tank. But 4? You must have been eating some bad burritos in that car, my friend, because that's not ideal for you. Number 2. There's a Dunkin' commercial out, and Dunkin' sucks. The new drink that's made with munchkins is being purported by Ice Spice because she calls all her fans munchkins. Who the hell is Ice Spice? Why do we give anybody attention nowadays because they are rappers and musicians? Drill and trap are not genres of music. They are power tool and what you use to capture vermin. So let's stop with this. Ice Spice. And by the way, take off your fake nails. Disgusting. Number 1, speaking of disgusting, Les Miles. Let's have a discussion here, Les Miles. Your daughter is in the field of reporting and journalism for college football. Fine. Great. Love it. Her name is Catherine. Catherine Miles. Okay. Catherine Miles is a pretty good reporter name for Sideline. Not what she goes by. She goes by the name Smacker. It's a childhood nickname. So here's how it sounds. 24-3 between Liberty and Charlotte. Throw down to Smacker Miles on the sideline. What? This is just opening the door for lawsuits and harassments and all of that because you've given the girl a nickname of Smacker, which is 1 syllable away from smack her, and somewhere Chris Brown just did that. So we want to avoid that at all costs. But come on, the real name is Catherine. It's a good name. Use it. Drop the Smacker, add the Catherine. You'll have a much longer career. You don't see Erin Andrews go by her nickname, which was Puffy. You don't see that. No, she goes by Erin Andrews. Not Puffy Andrews. Erin Andrews. Catherine Miles. Not Smacker Miles. Catherine. Or Catherine Duncan Sucks Miles. That works too.
I don't know if that's exactly a nickname or a last name that anyone has, but it wouldn't surprise me in any way, shape, or form if that will be it. Parenting advice from the man himself, the Podfather of us all. Outstanding Rant Podium as always, and an outstanding episode that must come to a close. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on this first edition of Chaos After Dark 2.0 for the 2023 season. Still a truncated and abbreviated version, but still plenty of chaos to go around with the pick challenge, fun with trivia, a lot to go over, and don't worry, some of the topics that we kind of, went around, we'll be discussing it in more detail in the coming weeks. I think maybe after this game, potentially, if Justin's upset pick comes true, we got a lot to talk about with the Eagles this season and plenty more with all of our picks and all across the NFL landscape. But of course, in order to do that, you will have to join us next week for yet another edition of fun, football, and chaos. Thank you all so much for joining us. We'll see you guys next